Have you ever moved into a new home, hoping for a fresh start, only to realize that you may not be the only one living there? What would you do if a roommate's dark spiritual practices unleashed something sinister in your own home? Have you ever witnessed an entity that no one else seems to see? Today, we test the believability of the demonic attachment Felix.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
where we dive into the unknown and the unusual
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
That's right. It is Tuesday. You heard the music. Am I gone right now, or am I coming back?
I'm
coming back.
On the way.
No, I am back. I'm back now.
You're back now?
I was gone last week.
But we couldn't record this while you were gone.
So although I have, in a different world, on a different podcast, I have done a recording with you.
We could have, but that would have been just too much stress. And you know what? You need to relax now.
Yeah, I'm very excited. We're doing another listener submission. We're mixing up our schedule a little bit because y'all just were so rambunctious about how much you love listener submissions.
You were in those comments. You were mixing it up, and we appreciate it.
You were shouting from the rooftops that you want more listener stories. So here you go.
I'm going to be optimistic. By now, I'm hoping we've actually hit that 5-star, that 5,000 on Spotify. I'm going to be optimistic about it.
We'll find out.
I hope we have. If you are listening right now and you haven't given us 5-star on Spotify, let's get there, baby.
Let's get there. And if we did, congrats to future Tyler and Charlie.
Claps.
I got 3 listener submissions for you today, but not a collection. It's not a collection.
Okay, sure.
It could be a collection, but it's not because
you don't want to do a collection volume, whatever.
No. I want it to be like if we're going to be doing more listener submissions and we're going to get more out there.
Yeah.
Some of them are really short.
Just part of the game.
Part of the game. So I got 3 of them for you today. I'm super excited to get into them. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get into them. The first story comes to us from Stephanie from Ocala, Florida. Who's from Ocala? Yes, you have the first word. Yeah,
I did remember, but they're from Florida. You said Florida. I heard California.
Did I say California?
No, you said Florida. I'm doing my best here. After you guys probably heard the blooper at the end of this, but I'm doing my best. I'm hanging in there. Everything's going to go great.
What blooper?
The thing that I just messed up at the beginning.
Oh, is that going to be the blooper?
Absolutely.
But it'll be at the end.
Yes. So when you'll get to the past from the future, you'll see.
Yep. So this story is from Stephanie. It takes place in 2010. Ocala, Florida.
Florida. I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I wonder if she knows that. Probably not.
Probably not personally. That's the year that What Separates Me From You came out.
That's a good song.
Album. I got you, bro. Let me just mute you. Okay. All right. Charlie, we lost Charlie. He's having a hard time right now. It's okay, though. We'll get through this. He can sit back and listen to this story from Stephanie. You're muted. He still can't hear you. He gave me a thumbs up, so we're going to continue. All right. This is Stephanie's story. Quote, "This is about a creepy rental we lived in for a year. So it's 2010. I lived with my boyfriend, his parents, and his younger brother. A little bit of a rough situation there, I think, but that's okay. You do you. The current house was small, so we decided to look for a bigger place. His mom, parentheses, who we'll call Deborah, and I were looking for houses within all of our budgets. My boyfriend and I didn't make enough to rent our own place, but we could afford to help her pay for a bigger house. Deborah and I had looked at so many places, but none were what we were looking for. Defeated, we decided to turn around and go back to the house that we were in. That's when we saw the small rental sign for a house, so we decided to drive by. There wasn't anyone there, and the house was empty. The back door was unlocked, so we decided to take a quick peek, and it was beautiful. I think that's against the law. Stephanie,
just a quick peek.
It's just alligator living there from Florida.
He's like, howdy, y'all.
This is my house. So the house was beautiful and it was huge. The layout was perfect. It had plenty of room for everyone. So they quickly called the number, I'm assuming after leaving the house and closing the door. They called the number from the sign and they put down the deposit. Quote, my boyfriend Johnny and I went and got a truck and started moving stuff in as soon as we could. His parents made a few trips too, but decided that they were going to leave their beds for last and stay at the house that we were moving from. Johnny and I decided we'd stay at the new house and start unpacking. We spent hours unloading and going through stuff, and honestly, I was worn out. I told Johnny that I was going to take a shower, and he wanted to keep going so that we had less work for tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I go to the bathroom, close the door, and I take a shower. Once I was done and I got dressed, I put my hand over the door handle. It was one of those lever style ones, and the handle was quickly snatched downwards, like someone on the other side was trying to get in. I froze. I don't know why, but instantly there was just this fear in my heart. I waited for a moment thinking that maybe it was just Johnny, but he surely would have opened the door by now. But nothing happened. So I called out to him. There was nothing. No sound at all. So I finally mustered the courage to open the door, and there was no one there. I walked to the garage, and Johnny was in the back of the truck moving stuff into the garage. I asked him if he tried to get in the bathroom, but he told me that he was in the garage the entire time. I completely freaked out, but ended up chalking it up to just, the stressors of moving. So weeks go by, we're all moved in, and nothing happens for a while. But one day, his mom, Deborah, and I are at the house alone. Johnny and his dad are at work, and his brother was at school. I was hanging in my bedroom with the door open, and Deborah was in her room, and I started hearing this growling. Now, we did have a dog, so I thought maybe another dog had walked by the house and she saw them or, something like that. And I turned my attention back to whatever I was watching on TV. But then I heard the growling again, but it was louder, and it was coming from the end of the hall. I got up, expecting to find our dog there, but I didn't see her, and I didn't hear the growling anymore. I slowly walked down the hall into the kitchen, and from the back door, I saw our dog outside laying down. I get goosebumps and just a knot in my stomach, but decided to just go back into the room. About an hour goes by, and suddenly, Deborah yelled for me. Not the usual way that she would call me, it was different. So I quickly got to her room, and she asked if I was just in the bathroom or the kitchen. I was clueless, and I said no, I was watching TV in my room. She said that she was in the shower, and through the opaque style shower door, she could see someone come into the bathroom and go over by the tub on the other side of the bathroom. She said that she thought it might have been her husband, so she was talking to him, but there was no response. She opened the shower door, and there wasn't anyone in there. She said it freaked her out, so she threw on her robe to look out of the room and saw someone quickly dart through the kitchen. She said she looked outside, and her husband's truck wasn't there, so she wanted to ask me. I told her what I had experienced with the growling, and we were both freaking out. That's the two biggest things that have happened there. There were other smaller things, like the garage and laundry room doors would constantly be unlocked and opened, even after shutting them and locking them and no one going in. The one window in the dining room always had dead flies around it. We constantly had to clean them up, and I don't know how they got in. It's not like we would leave the doors open or anything. 1 or 2 flies I could understand, but I'm talking about a good pile of dead flies every single day. I have to mention also that when we moved in, we had to wipe out cabinets and stuff because they were just really dusty and dirty. And when we were moving out, I was packing the stuff from the cabinets, and there were these symbols etched into the paint inside of the cabinet doors. Every single one. I asked, and all of us remember nothing being there, but there they were, and we were looking at them. No one knew how it happened, even in the bathrooms. Same symbols. I even found them etched underneath a drawer to the bathroom cabinets. It was so weird, and thankfully after we left, we stopped experiencing strange things. Unquote.
That last detail with the etchings.
It's just like a brand.
That's what. No, that's so scary.
Yeah. Also, imagine how crudely it was etched. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just markings.
Oh man, it's like the brand occult.
It reminds me of the LA apartment.
Oh, yeah.
The Shadow Man, LA
That
Shadow
was
Man.
Georgie, is it?
Was Georgie.
Oh, man. I remember that.
But like, it's also like, that's something you notice. And it's like, even if you don't notice in one cabinet, somebody would have noticed it in one of the cabinets.
All of them.
So like, how did it get there while they were living there?
That's so scary.
Like, what triggered all this creepy stuff? The growling and the dogs outside.
And the flies. The flies are a big thing. I remember that's a big thing.
We have a lot of flies here.
Well, that's not the same thing, though. The Amityville Horror. There's a lot of flies. There's black flies. It's scary. What do you think it was? See, what you described almost sounds demonic, but I don't think it is, because it would have been much worse.
I don't know how long they were there, though, either. Almost makes you think, like, what if the door was locked when they were checking it out, and it saw people coming, and like it unlocked the doors,
like invited them in.
Yeah, like it beckoned them.
Scary.
Or like what?
And she said the laundry room and the garage doors were open a lot.
Yeah. Or even like what made the people leave previously without like locking? You know, it seems like getting out in a hurry.
Out of there. You gotta get out.
But it wasn't like it was furnished either. It was large. But
yeah.
That's lesson, y'all. Like, things are not as they seem. Like, you might not like your house because it's small. You don't want to get into a big haunted house.
If something's not meant to be, and sometimes things seem meant to be, but maybe it's something else pulling the strings.
And just like the bathroom stuff, like 2 experiences in the bathroom. One was just the handle, but that's still creepy because, you know, you've had handle experiences.
Yeah.
But just like...
Dude, sometimes I feel like sometimes I think Stephanie comes to the bathroom while I'm taking a shower, and you see my bathroom. You know my bathroom. It's tiny.
I know the bathroom.
So
I live that bathroom.
I'm like, hey, what's up? And then nothing. I was wrong.
You might not be wrong.
Well,
for you, it's the Fae, right? In your house,
I would imagine if it was anything, it would be the Fae.
I mean, anything's better than Producer Ben's house.
Yeah,
his bathroom's
haunted as shit.
Yeah, I've never really had anything creepy and I have like medicine cabinets too. Like, it's priming for the jump scare.
I think if we should ghost hunt anywhere, it should be Producer Ben's house.
Producer Ben's house goes. Yeah. I'm sure his family, like while they're eating dinner, we're just like, "Is there anyone here?"
No, we'll put them up at a hotel for a night. Kids will love it.
Put them in a hotel. While you guys are ghost hunting, could you turn the oven off?
Stephanie is my wife's name, and it made me think of that at the beginning. Cool story from Ocala.
Oka, LA. All right, let's move on to our second story. All right, this story comes to us from Josh, and it takes place in the
in the UK.
In the UK, United Kingdom.
Do you think they like it when you call it the Do you think
Probably not.
Probably not.
I'm not saying they're ucky. I can't have an opinion because I've never been there.
Cool place. Cool place. Do you know the nations of the United Kingdom?
Listen, if I was very, very awake right now, I still wouldn't be able to name all of them. So
there's only a couple.
You're not going. Can you name all of them?
Absolutely.
All right.
Wales.
Okay.
England.
Okay.
Scotland.
Sounds right.
And Northern Ireland.
Perfect. And if you're wrong, you'll get corrected.
So. I think I'm pretty correct.
It's like Scandinavia, right?
Am I missing one?
You put it out there, so...
You know what? If I am missing one, please educate me. Please tell me politely that I'm missing one.
Politely, okay? Because like we can't even name all 50 state capitals.
I cannot, but I am a big fan of the UK, so...
The yuck, as they call it. So this story is from Josh. Quote, "The experiences are all from my time in my first house. It was built by my dad and my granddad and was ready by the time I was born. The first experience I had there was when I was around 4 years old. I remember being late and I was about to go upstairs. My room is immediately to the right at the top of the stairs, but there was a cupboard with a boiler in front at the very top. I looked up the stairs and the cupboard was open. I could also see an elderly-looking man with very pale skin. This in itself was odd, but it was a man's expression that terrified me. His expression was one of someone screaming at me, but without any sound. There was no noise. I shouted and screamed for my mom, who was upstairs. She walked right in front of this elderly man, who appeared to be dressed in rags. I screamed at her to look behind her and see him because it felt like he could be dangerous. But then I felt someone grab my arm and I turned around to see my mom, who couldn't have been upstairs as I was seeing her right in front of me. So I turned back around to look upstairs, and there was nobody there, and the cupboard was closed. Now, that's not the end of his story, but I do want to know what you think of that, because I'll be honest, the first time I read that, I had to read that like last two sentences like 10 times, because I'm like, what happened with the mom? So just to paraphrase.
Please, yeah.
He's so, the way that this house is in the UK, there's a boiler and a cupboard at the top of these stairs.
Okay.
And he's looking up there, and he sees this pale man doing a silent scream.
Yeah.
And then he sees his mom walk in front of it, not acknowledging it. And he's yelling to his mom, like, hey, watch out.
Yeah.
And while he's looking up the stairs, behind him, someone grabs him. And he turns and looks, and it's his real mom. And then he looks back up the stairs, and the mom's not there, and the man's not there.
Okay.
So not only did he see an elderly man, he saw his, quote, mom up there.
Yeah. All right.
When she was actually behind. Or, well, I'm assuming, she disappeared. I was about to be like, which one is the real mom?
I have a trippy idea.
Let's hear it.
Bear with me.
Yeah.
I think I'd say a good 40% of this is because I'm pretty tired. But what if it's not a ghost or anything like that?
Sure.
He's seeing the mom and this old man because there's a time bleed right there.
Time lapse.
He's seeing the future of his mom and the past of this old man almost bleeding into each other.
What if it's the future? What if it's the present of his mom and the future of himself?
Well, it couldn't be the present of his mom because she's behind him.
In a different dimension. So you're saying it's a time lapse?
I'm saying time.
Okay. I was going to say, because if it was like her from a different dimension and him from a different dimension.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, I guess I'm not trying to say that that's Josh that he saw. It could be a ghost.
Could be ghost.
The weirdest part isn't even the pale man. Like, the pale man's the scariest part. Mm-hmm. Like, there is something that gets me about silent screams.
I don't like that either.
Like, I don't know. It's just like, it kind of gives you like the elongated jaw thing. And it's like, then it like seeps into the uncanny valley, or like, predators. Like, you think of like, maybe subconsciously like a snake unhinging its jaw.
Yeah.
But like any type of horror film where it's got like the entity, like, did you ever see The Mummy with Brendan Fraser?
Oh yeah, that's like, not the same.
The first one is scary, but the mummies that chase him where their jaws drop. You're telling me the first Mummy did not scare you?
Not really.
You're tired right now. You're not thinking clearly. There were moments of that first one that were. I mean, it was very funny too. It was one of those.
I don't know. I just really like Brendan Fraser. But hold on? Do you like my idea about the time?
I think it's possible. I think there's a lot of things that are possible.
Sense. That makes sense to me because it's an old place in the UK. It's a time bleed. Or maybe he's very sensitive.
Or it's mimicry.
Oh, but why?
Mimicry.
Why present something and then just overlap it? That's silly.
It could be two different things.
They didn't check out each other's like schedule.
They didn't even look at each other. The mom did not acknowledge the pale man.
Two entities trying to scare the same person at the same time. It's like, I had this shift. Hold on.
Okay. Let me put it this way. The pale man screaming seems to be acknowledging that it's seen. The mom seems to almost be going about her day, like almost unbeknownst that she's being seen. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know. I guess time slip would work because it's like a viewing. Yeah. It's like you're viewing two different times. Mm-hmm. That's like what I'm maybe saying. 45 minutes ago and
100 years ago.
Yeah. The silent scream there's just like, maybe whether you watch horror movies or play scary video games or not, there's just certain images. Yeah. Like, it's like the whole like Grudge, Samara thing, like the kimono and like the long black hair. Mm-hmm. That's a thing, like a trope, but like the elongated scream is just like, spooky. So anyway, back to Josh. Quote, the next experience would have occurred about a year later when I was 5. My room, being at the immediate right of the top of the stairs, meant that I could see down past the stair banister from my room doorway. One night, I got up to go pee, and I glanced downstairs, and through the banister, I could see black, shadowy, humanoid shapes walking up and down the hall at the bottom. They made no noise, but their movements gave the impression that they were pacing and communicating with one another. It frightened me so much that I snuck into my mom's room while she slept, and I slept against the door of her room on the floor. I would always wake up on the floor the following day. This continued every night for weeks and weeks. To my memory, I never really told her about it, but she bought a gate for my room because she was frightened I was sleepwalking and I might actually fall down the stairs at night. Every night, I would peek out my doorway, look downstairs, and see these figures just walking up and down the hall. I would carefully climb over the new gate at my door and sleep on the floor in my mom's room out of fear that they would venture upstairs. This continued for more weeks, every single night. One night, while climbing over the gate, I accidentally made a loud noise by tripping on the gate slightly. Immediately, the black figures turned their attention to me and started rushing up the stairs as if they were trying to catch me. I ran to my mom's room and slammed the door. I peeked under the crack of the door to see shadows moving back and forth right outside. Again, I woke up the next morning on her floor covered in sweat. After that night, thankfully, I never saw them again. I never told my mom about these shadowy figures at the time, but just a year ago, and for reference, I'm 26 now, I told her about it, and she said that she knew. She said every night I would come into her room and I would talk about the black robes walking downstairs, and would continue talking about them until I fell asleep from exhaustion. She said she never wanted to bring it up after it stopped happening because it scared her every night, but in my memory of it happening, I was always asleep every time. All right, shadow figures. What do you think?
I think
In robes.
I think it's not a time slip.
Another time slip.
Yeah, I think it's this old house, and like they're the residents of the old house living their life, right? But
Just living their life, walking around, pacing,
doing stuff
robes.
throughout the day. Maybe they're cleaning, maybe they're just whatever, cooking. But
I don't get cooking out of this, but okay.
I don't know. Maybe it's like a sped up version of their life. But they hear a loud bang in the upstairs. They run upstairs to investigate. What was that loud noise? And then they weren't necessarily chasing him. They're trying to find this loud noise.
It's like they just got like old Fitbits or just trying to get their 10,000 steps in the living room.
Maybe it's a stretch. But
I think you're trying to make the time slip continually work. I think it can be two different experiences.
trying to make fetch a thing.
This doesn't feel like a time slip.
Oh
This
my
feels
God.
like a haunting.
Oh my God, Gretchen, you can't just ask people why they're black shadowy figures. I could see the haunting for sure. What do you think it is then? Just like ghosts? Just like oblivious ghosts?
No, I don't think they're oblivious. I think despite this, and as scary as this would be, having, like shadow figures rush upstairs and, like hooded robes.
That's the second time tonight we've had that image of a black shadowy figure rushing upstairs.
Yeah, this one's not on all fours though. So
it's still bad.
Somehow a little less scary.
I don't know, it's still bad.
The
When
mom,
I go upstairs,
seeing the mom is still the weirdest thing to me.
When I go upstairs, I go on all fours.
So does my 2-year-old son.
Shut up.
He's 3 now, actually, as of when this comes out. The mom is still very strange.
It is weird. It's very weird. I don't know. Do you have an idea about? I never asked you. What was your thought?
I don't know. I don't particularly have an idea. It very. There's no boxes. It's like a child's room.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know where all these toys go, but they're toys. You know, this is paranormal stuff happening.
Our friend Jim Harold would call that mom thing. He would call that a head scratcher.
It's a head scratcher.
Head scratcher. Yeah, he would. Because it's weird as shit.
That's what he won't say.
That's what he has. He doesn't say that part.
Can we say our friend Jim?
I think so.
I'm
gonna claim it. God damn it.
Okay, let's get to his last experience. Quote, the last experience is related to sleep paralysis, which happened when I was 17. One night I opened my eyes and I saw a humanoid with a face covered by a shadow, but his body was covered by burns, particularly on the right shoulder. His presence felt threatening, and he just stood there watching me. When I fell asleep, I was in a dream, still in my bed, but there was a friendly presence this time, a woman. I don't know why she asked that I bleed all the radiators in the house before morning, otherwise something bad would happen. In the dream, I followed through and I bled a radiator, and then I woke again. I was unable to move, and the burned, threatening figure with the blacked out face was closer to my bed this time, still just watching me. I was afraid, but I drifted off again, and I went right back to the same dream, and I continued bleeding the more radiators. When I awoke again, the burned figure was closer, and I was still unable to make out its face. I could just feel that this thing was so angry and sinister every time I would wake up and see it. And this continued until it was right next to my bed, leaning over me. But I bled the last radiator and woke up for real this time, covered in sweat. I assumed that the whole thing, even the sleeping, the waking, it all must have been a strange nightmare. But when I got out of bed, I noticed that all the radiators had fluid splashed out on the walls from where they'd been bled. Since that night, I've developed a scar on my right shoulder that looks like a burn or a strange birthmark. I've never had any injury to this area, and it's still there today. Unquote.
That's pretty wild. The physical evidence is wild.
The physical evidence as well. Bleeding a radiator is that world? Like, is that just old house?
I think it's old house.
Old house.
But also, I was like, do you bleed a radiator after you vanquish the radiator and dry it out? Like, how's that?
I don't know.
Is that liquid coming out of it? It must be, right? Is it like
bleeding? It is such a weird.
It's a weird phrase.
Draining.
Draining
is what we would say, Josh.
Yeah,
that's okay. You kept it spooky. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Cutting the radiator's throat and bleeding it out.
Radiator's like, what you doing there, Josh?
Like, you're not going to cook it after. Yeah. Do you think this is a premonition kind of dream?
Premonition?
Yeah, premonition. Do fires start if radiators aren't blood?
I don't know.
That's my question, I guess, to the world.
For all of you who have radiators, I had radiators when I lived in Twin Oaks.
I did not ever have a radiator.
It seems like, what a weird situation. You have to do this task.
Yeah.
Or else something bad will happen. And every time you woke up, which wasn't even, I've done that before. You wake up in a dream, but you're still in a dream. It's so trippy.
What are the odds that one of his parents were actually bleeding the radiators while he was sleeping and he dreamed he was doing it?
Like he overheard them talking about it?
Or he overheard one of them doing it. That's why he saw the liquid.
I feel like a quick question could have solved that puzzle.
Could have.
Hey.
And that's the nice motherly figure could have been his mom actually talking about bleeding the radiators.
Yeah.
Just not trying to debunk anything. I'm just asking questions. The scar is insane to me.
The mark that he never had before, and it appeared right where that person was burned. Yes. The shadow face.
Yes.
The shadow face is interesting in terms of like premonition, time slip. Yeah. Not time slip, I guess, but
I didn't say it. You said it.
No, I did. You're right. But it's like it could be anyone. You know what I mean? Or like it could be a different version of himself where it's like if you don't bleed the radiator, it's like the future hasn't happened yet. Yeah. So the face isn't formed, but bad stuff can happen.
He's like mad at himself in the past for not stopping the fire.
And he was just just slow enough getting it done that he just got that tiny burn.
Yeah.
Which is I don't even know if I would notice it. You know, there's people that like routinely check themselves like in a mirror. You know what I mean? Like I don't do that.
No.
I don't. It's been a minute since I seen my back.
I guess like I don't.
You know what I mean? It's like, have you ever heard someone say like, I found like a new mole or something somewhere or something like that?
I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe I'm not as in touch with my body.
Just covered in moles.
Or like, you know, when people are showering, they feel like something weird. It's like, I need to get more in tune with me.
Yeah. I get that.
I think. I mean, I could have burn marks all over me. I don't know.
Another great story.
I think it comes down to, it's a very paranormal house. Now, is it the house or is it Josh, you think? Like, do you think anyone in this house would be having these experiences? Or do you think Josh just happens to be incredibly sensitive? And I'm not saying he's drawing people to the house.
Yeah.
But maybe he's seeing things there more clearly than other people would.
I would say that, you know, sensitive people in the UK, I feel like they have a field day because that place is just so full of history and death and hauntings. I feel like it's got to be really powerful there.
That's true. Like homes, an old home.
I didn't answer your question.
The old home in the United States is very different than an old home in the UK.
Yeah, right. Like that old.
What was my question?
Do you think he's sensitive or is the house haunted or combination?
Answer the goddamn question. Charlie.
I think, like I just said, I think combination. Little combi.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
That is exactly what I wanted to hear. I think it's, like he's haunted, he's sensitive, it's time lapse, it's ghosts.
I like the time lapse idea. Could be.
It's not fae. I don't like. How much of this do you think is? I mean, we can talk about this in the discussion.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering how much, if any, of that is related. Like, is story 1 related to 2 to 3 and so on?
Well, if you think it's all a time lapse, like I have an idea it might be, then all of it is related. But if it's just haunting, I don't know. To
just
me,
a basic ass haunting.
Well, yeah. Is it just like spirits passing by? I don't know. I'm very interested to hear what you have to say about that.
I have no more insight than what we're talking about right now.
Then I guess it'll be a very boring discussion.
But no, we're going to discuss in the discussion. It's like I'm withholding information from you. It's like there's actually this whole epilogue where he's like,
sometimes that could be fun.
I'm not withholding information. But what I am going to tell you is that we're going on to story number 3. All right, story number 3. This comes from the homeland, Ohio.
Ohio.
Now, she
Northern
didn't want me. No, she didn't want me to say we're in Ohio. I can tell you off the air,
please.
And she said, okay, so I'll just plug this now. If you have a story that you want told on the podcast, and we're doing more of them now, more than we ever have. Jam-packing the episodes with more stories and doing more per month. So it's not as dreadful of a wait that it was before.
That's the goal.
But if you go to believingthebizarre.com, go to submit your experience, fill out the form with all of the details necessary and more. There's a part of that form where we ask you for privacy reasons if there's anything you want to change.
Oh, indeed.
People will be like, hey, leave this out or change
Don't say
this.
my name, my last name, which we've never done.
So this person I emailed recently, they sent me a photo.
I saw that, yeah.
The photo will be the graphic.
Cool.
In the email or in the form, she said, please change the names. I feel like she means the people involved names.
Mm-hmm.
But just to be safe. And I feel bad. So if you listen to this and you're like, I wanted my name in there, let me know and we'll shout it out in the next episode. We'll give you your credit. But just to be safe, I'm going to use Sophia.
Yeah, that's fair. Which is our alias name.
It is our alias name.
No connection to some movie that came out around the 90s.
It starts with a J. I'll give you that. Her real name starts with a J. And she's cool. I don't know if she wanted her name omitted. I just don't want to risk it.
We'll find out. It's all right.
So we'll go with Sophie or Sophia. All right. So this takes place in Ohio. From Sophia. Let's go. Quote, I'll start with some background information, the event itself, an investigation, and the after effects. And let me just say, I like that this is a structured submission. That we just got the table of contents.
Yeah.
I'm always down with that.
I like that. You lay it out. It's good.
It's good stuff. All right. Quote. So here's my story. Background. I lived with my older brother at the time, John, and we also had a roommate, Melissa. Obviously, both of those names are not correct. Melissa was a strange woman and was into spiritual stuff. She told me that she was Luciferian and that she had a demon attached to her, and his name was Felix. I thought, okay, this girl is whack. But whatever, you do you, as long as you keep that shit away from me. She would read people's tarot cards and apparently even used a Ouija board in our house, which we didn't find out until later when she moved out. At the time, though, I didn't believe in any of that stuff. Anyway, my brother worked at Amazon, third shift, and honestly, I'm not really sure what Melissa did. She never had a real job, but somehow managed to always pay her rent. My brother had 2 dogs, and I had 2 cats. So when my brother was at work, I would watch the dogs. His dogs also would not leave my cats alone. So I did have a baby gate in the doorway to keep the dogs out and to let the cats have their free reign of the house. So here's what happened. One night, I was home alone. My brother was at work and Melissa was also gone. It was late, so I headed to bed since I had to work in the morning. The rule was, if no one's watching the dogs, they need to be put in the cage. Since the dogs were behaving so well, I decided to leave them out of the cage this time. So around 1 or 2 in the morning, the dogs started barking and just wouldn't stop. I didn't bother to go downstairs, and instead I just yelled from my room to shut the F up. That went on for about 10 minutes or so, and eventually they stopped barking. I didn't think anything of it because, honestly, they would just bark at leaves blowing in the wind. My brother decided to come home early that night. Normally, he would get home around 7 in the morning, but this time it was closer to 4 or 5. He said he sat on the porch for a little while and then eventually came in. I could hear everything since I'm a pretty light sleeper and I sleep with my door cracked open, and I heard him start walking towards the kitchen and just yell, "What the hell?" He comes running upstairs looking for Melissa, and I yelled back, "Yeah, she's not home." My first thought was, oh no, the dogs had an accident in the house. But he comes busting into my room and tells me I have to see this. We both go downstairs, and I swear to God, it was something that I've only ever seen in movies. The dining room chairs were crazy. Some were stacked on top of each other. Some were flipped upside down on the table. Some were stacked on the table, and there was also one stacked on the mattress in the corner. Then in the kitchen, all the drawers and cabinets were opened, and I even had pictures. I thought maybe this had to be a joke, or maybe even that someone broke in and did a prank. But we checked all the doors and all the windows, and everything was locked, and nothing was stolen. And I would have heard if someone came in the house. Like I said, I'm a really light sleeper. It was just me and the pets. My brother looked just as freaked out as I was. It had to have happened when the dogs were barking.
Dude, that's really scary. That's like out of Poltergeist.
Yeah. I mean, she's not wrong. It really is like out of Poltergeist. It's really like out of horror movies, you know? It's like where you walk in and everything's just stacked up.
Yeah, that happens. I think in Skinwalker Ranch that happened. Dude, that's really scary. Also, question, mattress in the kitchen?
That might have been where...
For the
No,
dogs?
the living room.
Okay.
I don't know if it was for the dogs or if it was where Melissa was staying.
Oh. Yo, what the fuck? That's insane.
And here's like some of the cupboards open.
I mean, I don't think the dogs did it.
These will be posted on our social media.
Also, it's just me. I feel like I get a bad vibe from the pictures.
Yeah, it is creepy. She sent a video that I haven't watched yet. We'll get to that in the investigation. After I read it, we can pause and watch it together.
Yeah.
Just a couple of buddies watching a real haunted film, you know. All right, on to the investigation. Quote, I had some friends who did paranormal investigating as a hobby and had a lot of the same tech that you'd see on Ghost Adventures. Him and his partner came over after he heard what happened. He set up his cameras downstairs and ran wires to the monitor that was outside our porch. He hung the proximity alert from the kitchen sink cabinets, which sounded kind of like a fire alarm. He also had his tape recorder, spirit box, and EMF reader, which I believe reads the electromagnetic waves. Prior to setup, he took the EMF reader around the house, and it spiked when it was near the chairs and the cabinets. Once they started their investigation, I sat out on the porch and watched the monitors. They sat in the dark inside, and the cameras were night vision. As soon as they turned the spirit box on, while walking into the home, a male voice came through and said, "Hello?" They sat at the table and started to ask questions. Side note, the first time the proximity alert went off, it was because one of my cats batted it, which I saw on the monitors. I gotta be honest, that was a little comic relief at the time. So they asked, "How many of you are here?" 3 different voices came through and said 4. The investigator said that the 4th entity did not speak, but it made its presence known when it entered the room. The air got cold, and they got chills up and down their spine and had this wrenching feeling in their guts. The proximity alert was going off, and the EMF reader was off the charts. The investigators weren't able to get much more info out of them after that. Apparently, the history of the house is that a family used to live there a long time ago, maybe 100 years or so. A husband, wife, and a little girl. The little girl used to be locked in the attic all the time, and the mother was abusive. The father had committed suicide in the house. I assumed that the 3 other entities that were in the house were them, and the 4th maybe was Felix. What do you think about the investigation there?
It's a scary story that they spun.
That is spun. That makes it sound like it's...
Where do they get the information from? The entities?
I guess.
Yeah.
Well, they might have also just done research on the house.
Yeah.
It was a montage that happened outside of this.
Yeah. It's
They might have. I guess let me put it this way: they might have done their research before they showed up.
Yeah.
They kind of know who they might be talking to.
Mm-hmm. It's that's very scary.
That's a lot of activity. Like there's a lot of horror movie levels here of like it's not just. I mean, we talk about episodes on the podcast all the time that are extraordinary, but like this is the type of investigation that Hollywood's like, yes, this is what happened. I mean, maybe not as extreme.
And we talked about this before, and this would be the kind of activity that I would question the how accurate it would be, but there is evidence. We do see there's a video. There's the furniture.
Let's watch the video. So the video it was a video of a video. Like it was the real footage from the camera, and she had taken a video of it, which I appreciate. I'm glad she didn't make us sift through like 2 hours of content to find it. But basically, you see the angle of the camera drop. Yeah. Not in a way. Now, I mean, it's
like it fell over.
We've had mic stands in the past, for music, podcasting, where, it drops.
Yeah,
cheap stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not accusing it of that. I'm just saying, like, we've definitely had things like that. Mm-hmm. But the belief is that
it couldn't have dropped without.
It didn't drop, and no physical person, investigator was nearby. It was just monitoring. They weren't like touching it, and it like the camera goes down on its own. Right, it's like something pushes.
It's significant enough to notice.
Yes. Oh yeah. Creepy. Save it for the discussion.
Yeah.
But I do want to know your thoughts on if these 4 entities could be the 3 and then Felix, and what your thoughts on like Felix and all this stuff is. Yeah. It is the namesake of the episode. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. I want to know more about it, but yeah.
All right, let's get to the after effects. Quote, I was never a believer in the paranormal until that event, and also never felt true fear until then either. Ever since then, Felix, in quotes, would always mess with me. I thought maybe it was just a poltergeist, or that I was losing my mind. I think whatever it was liked to mess with me because it would get a reaction out of me. I would see a shadow figure standing outside my doorway, just on the other side of the baby gate almost every single night. I would always hear footsteps coming from the attic, right above me. I would always hear the cabinets in the kitchen open and close. I thought initially that it was just my cats, because sometimes they like to nap in there, but soon figured out it wasn't when they were both laying next to me. The cats would also move their heads in sync, as if they were watching something fly around my room, but I couldn't see a thing, not even a fly. There was one night where I had a tug of war with my own bed covers, like someone kept yanking them from the foot of my bed. I even felt something playing with my hair one night while laying down. I would do everything I could to stay away from the house for as long as possible. Even stay at a friend's house. Someone made me a protection charm, gave me crystals and a blessed cross. I would consider myself agnostic, so I'm not really religious at all. But at that point, I was accepting whatever I could to potentially get help with whatever was haunting me. I'm not sure if these things were already happening before the event, and I was just oblivious due to not believing, or if it all started after. I finally told some of my friends one night while I was at their house that I feel like this thing was attached to me. And when I told them that, the lights literally went out and then came back on quickly. Eventually, Melissa moved out, and I did too in March of 2020. And ever since then, I've not been bothered by this thing. Other than the fact that it took me months to get over it and finally feel like I could live a normal life again without being on edge all the time. Unquote.
Man, that's actually really scary.
That is... When you look at like an entity messing with you versus like bad juju, like that's also like the playing with the hair. Like there's just some.
It feels like big. Feels like big like teasing vibes. Just like
teasing's a good, but I mean teasing can come across innocent, like you think of like children teasing, but this is like also like I don't want this creepy detail to kind of like fly under the radar, and it would really freak me out. Because I have 2 cats as well. But if I was like laying in bed and the cats were like in sync, like moving their heads, darting, watching something move across, like I think I like in my normal day-to-day life, I would assume it was a bug, that I just couldn't see. Mm-hmm. But she seems pretty confident that there wasn't a bug, and that's just like, I don't.
I mean, sometimes Mars will bark at nothing, but also Mars is not a very intelligent dog. So
likes to go fishing with you.
He does. He's a good boy.
You caught a perch there, Charlie.
He's not smart, but he's very good. What a creepy story.
Creepy story. So that is Sophia, as we'll call her, story. Those are our 3 stories. Let's get to the discussion.
Hello, everyone. Tyler is now home. We have not gotten into the studio to record these segments, so I am at home. I need you to excuse the sound difference if you hear one, which you probably do. We would just like to stop the show and thank everyone who has joined Patreon so far. That is Kayla, Jesse, Samantha, and Willow. You guys are real ones. Appreciate you so much. Don't even know, for real. And I just want to shout out one thing about the Patreon. So just like this episode, we have our listener submissions that we've done in the past. And something that we like to do, when allowed, is interview the people that have had these things happen to them and get it from their point of view directly. It's a lot of fun to do. It's really cool to hear their perspective. And we actually recently interviewed Travis from the Trench Coat Shadow Man episode. And you should really listen to what else he revealed during that interview on Patreon if you are interested in that. But let's get back to the episode.
All right, Charlie. We got 3 stories here. Let's go over Stephanie's.
Yeah,
This
in
is
Ocala.
Ocala rental.
Yeah.
Big family. And they got the cabinets that everything's etched in. She has the bathroom experience
That's so scary.
with Deborah.
The thing about this one, everything feels, all the activity feels like it is symbolic of a demonic kind of thing. But the reasons why I don't think it is because it didn't stay with them. Because demons haunt people,
Not places.
right?
Fish are friends, not food.
Different expression. And also, like, these signs point to that, but also I don't think it is because there was no attachment. Like, people didn't change.
Well, you and also you would think that maybe with the etching in the cabinets that there was something there. Like it's almost like marking territory.
Yeah.
I can't begin to explain or pretend I understand like occult things or
Right.
ritualistic things like that because I don't, and I don't pretend to. But just going along with what you were saying, where it's like it's not about the people, it's about the place.
Yeah.
The fact that the place is marked, not them, and they leave and it's all good. It seems like that would make sense. But it also like do you think it was the entities that did the markings, or did they just like shield it and they couldn't see it? You know what I mean? It's like it's almost like you never saw the original It, did you? Tim Curry?
No, I didn't.
It like there's a moment where Bev goes in a house and it's normal and she has this experience who it's really Pennywise, but it was like an old lady. And when she leaves and she looks back, the house was dilapidated. Like it wouldn't be the one that you would go inside, but she had been convinced that it was a normal house. It's almost I actually don't really particularly think this is true, but I think it's interesting that like they were shielded to not see these signs. Like when because remember the doors were open.
Yeah,
Come in. This is nice. It's large. It's it's free. Small deposit. And then when they're leaving is when it like reveals itself. Could maybe not.
Interesting idea,
but also like when else would it have happened?
The night before.
They're like you're leaving. But you're not getting your security deposit back.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Definitely
not sure.
Definitely haunted though, right?
Oh, AF.
So on this podcast, I don't know about the other podcasts y'all listen to, and we're not jealous. It's fine. We rank things on the believability scale from believable to viable to skeptical to unbelievable, and we get to mix and match and warp that skill to however we want it to be fit.
Yeah.
And in this episode, it's about whether or not shit is haunted.
And I'm gonna be for real. Listeners' missions are weighted a little bit heavily toward believable.
I mean, we want to believe.
That's what I mean. We want to believe that you're telling the truth.
More often than not, when something is unbelievable or skeptical, we believe that you believe it. It's just that's true. Yeah. We're not as close to it as you are, and we can look around corners and stuff like that. Not to say we haven't gotten some stories where we're like, but this is a haunting, my friend.
Yeah.
There's some bad juju going in there.
I agree.
It reminded me a little bit of the Sault Ste. Marie.
Oh.
Tiny bit, where it's like there's the markings when they were leaving and stuff.
Yeah, and they found stuff after.
Yeah. I mean, witchcrafty, but not quite that. This is more like the marking, like we were saying, the LA Shadow Man. But yeah, believable. So let's get to the one
Yeah.
that we might discuss the most, even though it's the second episode. This is Josh from the Uck in your time-lapse theory. So multiple experiences. He sees the elderly pale man silent screaming, and his mom, the shadow-robed figures downstairs, and the shadow-faced burn person, and then the woman who's like, hey.
Yeah. Don't forget to bleed.
Slit the throat of the radiator. Furniture.
To me, I could see like seeing timelines shifting. People living their lives. I know you don't buy it.
No. I'm not saying I didn't buy it. I don't think it fits everything here. Like, I don't think we're in a room with one bucket and that bucket says time lapse and I'm confidently dropping this story in there. I think there's more to it than that. I'm not going to be the one to say that time lapse has nothing to do with this. I think especially for the first one with the mom, potentially, because I have no other excuse for this mom.
It's weird.
That's the weird thing I can't
really
place.
Weird.
If this mom is not in here and it's just pale man, shadow figures,
ghost,
a dream, yeah, I'd be like, it's a haunting. There's entities in this house, but I mean, the shadow figures is very scary, and it was the most consistent thing that happened to him.
Yeah, it was for like months.
But the things that honestly, like if I think about this episode and this specific story, like a year from now, it's probably going to be the burn and the pale man face. Like it's those two things more so because those are harder to place.
They're also visually striking.
Yeah, there's a lasting visual for sure.
And the scar on his shoulder
is still there. Proof. You can't escape the story. The mom just gets me so much though. Like it's doppelganger, mimic entity. You know, like that one we heard where the mom like walked backwards and was like see through in the light. Like it's just Why do moms gotta be doppelganging?
Because you trust them.
Because you trust them. That's right. Little girls and moms, watch out. But I kind of like the time lapse theory, even though I don't think it perfectly fits. But I like that you presented that he needed to do something or a fire would happen and it was a future self. Yeah. And it's like, this future doesn't exist yet, so I have a shadow face. Like you get to decide, your actions will determine what I look like.
Yeah.
But I'm coming to you.
But also, there's a dream element too.
There's a dream. It could all be bullshit. Not bullshit, but just not real.
It could be his dad let him out and his mom was reminding him.
His dad accidentally burned him.
Yeah.
And was like, oh shit.
I don't know.
But there's enough here.
Oh.
Going back to our scale.
Yes.
There's 3. I mean, even if 2 of them are fake and 1 is real, it still would hit the scale.
Yes.
And I don't think it's an attachment. Would you agree? Like, it's not.
No,
him, it's
I don't
the
think
place.
so. Yeah. I think it's the place.
Even
for
if
sure.
it's, if it's a time lapse. If it's a time lapse, then
I think it's definitely the place.
It's the location. Then you don't think it's him. You don't think it's him that's witnessing. You think it's the place that has time lapses.
I do think it's the place.
I don't know about that. But regardless, I'm going believable.
Believable as well.
All right, last story. We got Sophia. We got
creepy,
brother and a roommate.
Yeah.
So we got the brother. We got Melissa and her living there with 2 cats and 2 dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And as she said, Melissa is into the witchcrafty, Luciferian.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if her Ouija board. I wonder if that activity.
Yeah, we don't know the extent of that. And she did say that she didn't know it at the time, but she did play the Ouija board there. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's like the culture we're in now where it's like, you just say things. I mean, I don't want to say it's like our current culture. Let me put it this way. I'm so hangry. Sorry, I'm cranky. It's just my demon attachment, Felix. Or it's like, I'm sorry, I'm just a little bipolar. It's just like things people just say and they don't really.
Yeah.
Like I could see, couldn't you, like there's probably people in your life that that are like a little.
I can see someone saying it, being really convinced of it.
But also just like cutesy.
Yeah.
Like, that's just my demon attachment, Felix, you know? But that's us not knowing the context. And the way that Sophia perceived it was that it wasn't a joke. So I don't want to treat it that way. I want to call that out.
Yeah.
That's just, people say the extremes of things to emphasize like I never sleep.
Right.
Obviously I sleep.
Right.
Well, try to. But it's like you just go to people say the extremes to emphasize what they're trying to say.
Right. But what if it's not an extreme?
Well, that's the way I want to treat this now.
But what if it's like not a demon per se, but what if it's like a familiar, like a witch's familiar?
Mm.
some kind of entity that way, where it's like, because it does seem like it's like tormenting her in the end, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to. I'm going to draw conclusions, even though I shouldn't. It does not seem like Sophia is a fan of Melissa, and maybe Melissa knew that. But I mean, this thing is definitely targeting Sophia.
Yes,
the hair playing, the noises,
the standing there,
and the noises. It's. I mean, it's targeting her, and she's calling it out that it's targeting her.
Also, she's alone in the house when the chair thing happens too.
The chair thing is so crazy. Like, if I ever woke, well, first of all, I'd be pissed that I have to put it back. You know what I mean? I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
Also, I wouldn't want to touch it. I would take so many photos.
Yeah.
I would run out of space on my phone because I have the same angles. It wouldn't matter. I would just be like, I need someone to know.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, I believe that she didn't. Now, if there was none of the after effects in the investigation and it was just that one experience, it's like, did Melissa prank? I know I know she really leaned into the I'm a light sleeper and she would hear it. So I'm going to take it at face value. I'm going to take it at face value that she's a light sleeper and she would have heard it if it was. Also, isn't it crazy that she's a light sleeper? She heard her brother come home, so she hears those noises. Mm-hmm. She heard the dogs barking, which is when she assumes that that's when it happened. Mm-hmm. But she didn't hear any of the furniture.
Right.
Like,
it's weird.
If it was Melissa pranking,
you would hear that clunking around.
You'd hear.
Yeah.
The fact that they were able to do it silently.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, it's a scary story. I'm so far believable in this one. It's gonna be funny.
But then we get to like the three entities and potentially feel it. Like, it's just, there's three people here. They look into the history. Yeah. A mom, a dad, and a daughter.
It's creeping me out a lot. Like, it's really getting to me. This is the end. The idea that really scares me.
Like in last week's episode, where Robin opened up the slab and would think maybe that was initiating bad juju. It sucks that, like, other than the fact of just not being a fan of her, potentially, that completely out of her own control, she was like getting messed with by an. I mean, like,
well, it's good that it's
a tug of war with covers with an unseen entity.
Yeah, it's good that it stopped, though, right?
Yes. Yep. They all left. It was right during COVID.
Yeah. Right.
During COVID, they skedaddled, and she said things have been fine, other than getting over it because their level of PTSD.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to function.
Right. Right.
In multiple of these stories, like even Josh's story, he said like every night this was happening.
Yeah.
Like, and then also
he was also fine.
Really quick, going back to that, the mom in Josh's story didn't confirm that she saw them. She confirmed that he talked about it.
Yeah.
So
confirmation was not seeing the entities.
Yeah. Not that matters either way. But I mean, this story with Sophia is, I don't know to what extent it is. I mean, familiar is interesting. I agree. It's probably not demonic. I mean, not good though. Like, not a good spirit.
Right. No.
Like, bad, manipulative. I mean, I feel like this has been a trend for us lately. I know we're doing back-to-back episodes. Fun fact, we did last week's episode tonight, which is right now. But just entities that don't really seem evil.
Yeah.
But just like not good.
Right.
Like not good. Just don't like it. But believable.
Absolutely.
So that is our episode, The Demonic Attachment, Felix.
Oh boy.
Creepy stuff. Thank you, Sophia, by the way, for sending photos.
Yeah, that was really cool. Appreciate that.
I'll make sure to post those on social media. It adds a whole nother level of realism for Charlie and I. Mm-hmm. I mean, because sometimes, like, I mean, they're words, and we have imaginations, trust me.
Oh, yeah.
But actually, like, seeing it firsthand, it just makes it so much more tangible for us. And very spooky, and I'm glad it's all stopped for you. As much as I love paranormal, as much as I love horror stuff, I truly don't want anyone to be going through things that terrify them.
No, although I do like to hear the stories.
I like to hear the stories, but I like when there's happy endings. Yeah. Because your home, especially when it's your home, because that's supposed to be your place, you know? Mm-hmm. Kick your shoes off, you put your feet up, you binge watch something, you fall asleep, you wake up at 2 a.m, you ruin the next day.
And if you quite enjoyed these stories with us, please go to Apple and leave a 5-star and a review. We'd appreciate that a lot. And also, you can go to Spotify and you can leave a 5-star. Hopefully, we've gotten to 5,000 reviews. I'd be super pumped. But if you haven't, please do that.
And you can help us get there.
And these are the reviews from last week, which I will read right now. These are Spotify shoutouts. First one is from Tom Day. Said, "Can't lie, I'm a corporo slave, but listening to you guys takes me to another world and makes my day speed by, so I really appreciate it. Woo!" Next one from Julie Y. Even. Love that name. Said, "Loved it. Y'all are iconic. I used to work the 5 a.m. shift an hour away from my home, so I would get all spooked listening to y'all driving alone in the dark at 4 a.m. Got to do it again today. Love it." And last one from Rafi Kisner. "All day I've been looking at my peripheral vision, and I can't stop since you guys said that." And they're all referring to our last episode from the Warp Faces. Such a special episode. And thank you guys for leaving those comments.
And if you're looking for bonus content, if you're all caught up on the podcast and you want a little bit more, check out the Patreon.
Oh, it's there.
There's so much stuff, so much extra content between community building things or extra episodes or merch like hoodies and t-shirts
or
and
pins.
Our pin, our not dear, not tear pin. It is there for you. And also, just a reminder, word of mouth goes a long way. If you're enjoying the show, bring it up during your next huddle around the water cooler.
Yeah.
Or your family vacation. When they're like, "How's school going? How's work going? When are you going to have a baby?" Just be like, I'm listening to this new
really
podcast.
Into this podcast lately.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
We do appreciate you. We appreciate you greatly. So thank you so much for listening to the podcast that is very confident in understanding the geographical elements of the United Kingdom. As always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre.
Podcast as bizarre as you are.